Hi, I'm Evan Johnson, and welcome to my new series, Dinner in a Movie, where I break down dinner scenes and just scenes where people are eating in general, in film, and show you how effective they can be at elevating a dialogue scene. For the very first episode, I want to take a look at one of my favorite films ever made, Alien. Before we get started, spoiler warning for all three of you who haven't seen this masterpiece. Go and watch it and come back. I'll keep it paused for you. Okay? You finally seen it? Awesome. After a slow and atmospheric opening scene that establishes the layout of the Nostromo, we see Kane wake up, and then slowly the rest of the crew. This breakfast scene starts off with incoherent chatter, as everyone is having their own conversations, eating and drinking their drink of choice. Hell, even cornbread is brought up, which I find funny due to the sequel's reference to it.
What's this crap supposed to be?
Cornbread, I think.
It's good for you, boy. Eat it.
Sure you don't want some?
Just stay away from me, Bishop. You got that straight?
Guess you don't like the cornbread either.
This is where we get a good sense of the characters. In a revolving shot, we see Ripley quietly enjoying her meal and keeping to herself. Kane is smoking, and Dallas is sitting next to him and has a more typically rugged and cool sitting position. A lot of first-time viewers think that Dallas, who fulfills the typical rugged leading man role, will survive and be the one to take down the alien. It's small things like how he sits and talks, and maybe the fact that Tom Skerritt has top billing that leads to people thinking he's safe. But an alien, no one and nowhere is safe. Anyways, back to the scene at hand. Lambert is seemingly still groggy and cold. Ash is grabbing some milk. I wonder why he only drinks milk throughout the movie. And Parker and Brett do a little handshake and laugh. Now from this one shot, Ridley Scott has established all of the main characters and some of the relationships with each other, and that is all in a few second long shot. And that's even before the comprehensible dialogue even starts. Also, you get fun little details like the birds that make the ship feel lived in. Now we get a bit of humor to offset the cold and atmospheric opening.
Still with us, Brett?
Right.
Yeah. Oh, I feel dead. Anybody ever tell you look dead, man?
Through banter, we get some foreshadowing and a bit of humor before we get some world building. Brett gets Parker's attention and signals him to ask about bonuses. Parker asks Dallas, which implies to the audience that he is the captain and in charge. But real quick, some context as to why the bonuses are important. Before Alien, sci-fi stories typically were from the perspective of scientists, the military, or some higher up. But Alien shows what space would be like for the blue-collar worker. We get an excellent example of this with Brett and Parker's plan to ask about bonuses. In space, equitable pay is still an issue. Dallas opposes them, but before that conflict can be explored more, Dallas is summoned by Mother, and the first eating scene ends. Wow, in such little time, Ridley Scott has established characters, setting, relationships, and even some conflict, all in under 2 minutes. This scene comes after Kane has been attacked by the facehugger and has been brought back to the Nostromo. He's in the med bay. Ash and Dallas tried to get the creature off of Kane, but it's revealed to have acid for blood. As they try to figure out what to do, the facehugger detaches from Kane's face and dies. Now the crew is trying to figure out what to do with the alien carcass and the still unconscious Kane. Before any real dialogue in the scene occurs, we get the characters sitting in silence. Ripley takes a sip of a drink, Brett is smoking and is licking something off of a stick, and Parker is eating. Dallas in the corner is looking stressed and is noticeably not eating. Lambert comes into the scene later. The scene takes place at a closed-off booth instead of the wide-open table from before. That, plus the tighter shots, makes the scene feel tenser. Through cinematography and blocking, you can tell how the characters are feeling without hearing a single piece of dialogue, and it makes the audience feel just as trapped as the Nostromo crew feels. Then, the remaining crew minus Ash, who's still in the med bay, debate on what they should do with Kane and how the quarantine will affect them. I really like the debate. It shows different viewpoints and how the characters differ, as well as asking the audience to ask themselves what they would do in that situation. Also, Brett adds some much needed humor to the scene.
Right.
Whenever he says anything, you say right, Brett. You know that?
Right.
Then Ash calls Dallas to tell him that Kane is awake. The whole crew follows him and greets Kane. Parker is still eating when everyone rushes to Kane. Kane, at the end of the scene, when he catches up with everyone in the med bay, says he'd like something to eat. Parker and the others agree, and so is the start of one of the most iconic horror movie scenes ever. When people think of this scene, they typically don't think about how it's a dinner scene. But what's fun to me is that the title on this scene in the chapters of the Blu-ray is The Last Supper. As the scene begins, things are looking up for the group. The shots are wider, and they are back at the table in the middle of the chamber with open space all around. The talking over each other's back, which adds to the sense of camaraderie and realism, although Ash is still only drinking. I wonder why he's doing that. But then, cut to a close-up of Ash, and you can faintly hear a heartbeat. A medium 3-shot of Parker, Kane, and Dallas with Kane in the middle tells the audience that the heartbeat is related to Kane and that something is off, even though everyone is smiling. The shot pushes in on Kane slightly and he stutters. The heartbeat stays consistent throughout the scene. Then Kane starts to gag and cough. Parker keeps the jokes coming, but then the smiles fade. Chaos ensues, the camera shaking slightly, and the shots are close up, adding to the tension. Some sort of orange sauce is spilled on the table and onto some of the characters, foreshadowing the bloody fate of Kane. Then, of course, the infamous chestburster pops out. The heartbeat wasn't Kane's, it was the xenomorph's. Parker brings up a knife to stab it, but Ash says not to touch it. We think he's being smart and not wanting acid to go everywhere, but as we'll see later in the movie, there is an ulterior motive. The scene ends with the chestburster running away and the crew in shock. So this scene, of course, is iconic, and many people before me have analyzed the pure brilliance of it. So of course I'm going to cover ground people have already covered in my analysis. But the fact that this takes place at dinner is significant for a lot of reasons. 1. It is a direct mirror of the beginning breakfast scene. 2. The tone is lighter and more playful at the beginning. 3. The amount of eating and drinking in this movie adds to the realism of the world. These are normal, everyday people who like to smoke, drink, eat, and laugh. You feel the camaraderie, but all that is taken away, and all that they are left with is the sheer horror of being trapped with a perfect organism. The Last Supper not only continues character building, but it builds the tension with subtle touches like the heartbeat and Ash's reactions to Kane before anything happens. It establishes the main physical conflict of the film while foreshadowing future ones. I could go on and on about how great this scene is, but instead let's take a look at what lessons you can learn from these scenes from a storytelling and filmmaking perspective. Why have scenes of people eating? Dinner scenes and the like can help develop or establish characters in many ways. Look at where people are sitting and how they are sitting. Brett and Parker are close friends, so they almost always sit together. In the breakfast scene, Dallas's body language and sitting position establishes his character and how comfortable he is on the ship. And even though Ash is a part of the crew, he feels out of place in the scenes. Between blocking and camera angles, he feels like an outsider. It's not till later we find out that he is new on the ship. What are people eating and how? In Alien, the characters are eating nondescript space trucker food. Really, the only food we get a decent look at is the noodles Kane eats and the cereal that Ash seems to like. So they don't get a choice of what to eat because of their position on their mining ship. But how they eat is a small way to build character. During the scene when Kane is awake after the facehugger dies, Parker is scraping the bottom of the container of food, and then he says he wants to eat more. Kane, during the Last Supper, gets heaps of noodles because he's really hungry after being in a facehugger-induced power nap. Dallas likes to sip on his canned drinks. Is it beer? A V8? A Monster? We don't really know. Ripley, throughout most eating scenes, doesn't talk much. Lambert, we don't really see her eat too much. And Ash purposefully only eats cereal and drinks milk. I could make a whole video about the significance of milk, but in the meantime, go watch these videos. How do dinner scenes help world build? Going back to my note on the lack of choice when it comes to the Nostromo's food, food can help world build. What the characters are eating can establish the time period, culture, and social class. In Alien, they eat whatever is on the ship. It's not particularly great and is overprocessed. Kane says the first thing he'll do when he gets off the ship is find a decent meal, implying that there are better food options when they're not working on the Nostromo. So all these background details gives us a look into this vision of the future. Dinner scenes can tell us a lot about the characters and the world in big and small ways, but these scenes aren't always about the food itself. Pivotal moments can happen during these kinds of scenes, and that is one of the main reasons I'm starting the series. I love how varied the eating scenes are in film. I love how much they can tell you and you don't even realize it. These scenes can tell you how the world works, and can also be vessels to deliver important plot points and iconic moments. And that's all I have for the very first episode of Dinner in a Movie. Did you like the format? Did you learn something? Were there topics that you want me to go deeper into in the next episode? Is there a movie you want me to review the dinner scenes from next? Tell me down in the comments. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed. It would really help the channel, and please share this with your movie nerd friends. But as always, have a good afternoon, morning, or night, or whenever you're watching this. Peace.